And now we'll take a short look back on what we've covered within the course and talk about some skills that may prove useful when sitting your actual exam. But first, a few facts about the exam itself. First of all, there is an eligibility requirement for the Green Associate exam. However, it's pretty straightforward, and as long as you're 18 years of age or older and willing to agree to their disciplinary and appeals policy, you're going to meet those eligibility requirements. Now, the fees vary depending on whether you're a member of USGBC or CAGBC or a non-member, and it's $50 more for those non-members. Now, for the LEED AP, which represents that next step beyond the LEED Green Associate, for those of you that want to go pursue that at some point, has the same exact formal eligibility requirements. It's just being 18 or older and agreeing to the disciplinary and exam appeals policy. Now, that said, it's absolutely recommended, strongly recommended, in fact, to use USGBC's terms, that project experience as a lead practitioner has been gained prior to sitting this exam. So going back to previous versions of the LEED exam, they actually required that you document this experience. So that's no longer the case, and now it's just a strong recommendation. But keeping in mind that many of the questions that you'll encounter if you do go on to take the LEED AP exam would draw from knowledge that one would typically develop only through actual lead practicing. Now, we also see two sets of fees. The first fee schedule here refers to the full exam. Now, what we mean by full exam is the LEED Green Associate exam in tandem with the LEED AP exam. And that's $400 for members of USGBC or CAGBC, and then $150 more, or $550 for those non-members. Now, the specialty exam only, so if you've already had your LEED Green Associate and you're looking to get that specialty credential, or if you already have your LEED specialty credential and wanted to add one of the others, you would just take the specialty exam, and that's $250 for members of CAGBC or USGBC, and then $350 for those non-members. Now let's take a few minutes to talk about exam skills, since I know that for many of us it may have been some time since you've taken a formal exam. Now, what's going to happen on test day? So first of all, there's lots of things to keep in mind. The test itself is 2 hours for those 100 questions that are all multiple choice. So there's no true false, there's no fill in the blank, there's no essay involved. It's really just following the multiple choice format. Now, in addition to those 2 hours, you will have 10 minutes at the beginning to familiarize yourself with the computer interface, and it is strongly recommended that you take full use of that 10 minutes so that confusion later doesn't cause you to waste that precious exam time. At the end, there's also an optional survey that you can complete to really offer a feedback loop to GBCI so that they can know what you appreciate about the exam, was something confusing, all those things that they would really want to know from the actual users of the exam. The exam itself addresses what are called knowledge domains. Now, these are specific topic areas that USGBC has identified as relevant to the exam itself. Now, this includes lead process, integrative strategies, and then we have all 6 of our main categories. So location transportation, sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, and indoor environmental quality. The final category here is project surroundings and public outreach. Scoring is a little tricky. Now, it's 100 questions that tally up to 200 possible points. Now, with that in mind, it's not that each question's worth 2 points. That would be way too easy, apparently. So they have some behind-the-scenes weightings involved with these credits. So there's actually some questions that won't have any point value associated with them. And they include these so that they can really test them to determine if they will be used in future iterations of the credentialing exam. Now, the score of 170 is required to pass, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you get 85% of your questions right. There is no exact number for that. It's really based around the weightings. The final thing I wanted to point out here, which you can see toward the bottom, is the calculator button. So many of us are maybe not so comfortable with doing long multiplication or division on the fly, and while we could probably recall exactly how to do it if we took the time to think about it, that has nothing to do with the actual subject matter, that would be assessed within the exam. So we have a calculator button, so there shouldn't be any issues with the arithmetic side of getting these questions correct. So now some quick tips that may help in your preparation. So using the highlights of the material, so don't try to relearn the entire rating system or the LEED processes the night before. Really just take those highlights out and review those high points. Now, there is an inherent level of confidence that hopefully you'll be walking into this exam with. And if you are more confident, odds are that you'll perform better on this exam. Simple one here, wear something comfortable. You certainly don't want to be distracted by either tight fitting or otherwise uncomfortable clothing during your exam. Try to find a day that works best with your schedule. So don't have a stressful client meeting either right before or right after. You know, if you're preparing for a big work presentation, maybe that's the wrong day to also try to schedule your exam. So just be sensible and try not to have too many high pressure day-to-day activities kind of stacked up with your exam. Now the first 10 minutes is a great time not only to familiarize yourself with the environment, the computer, the calculator function, how to go forward and back, and all those things that are inherent in the testing equipment, but also to make sure that you're comfortable, that you catch your breath, that you're ready to sit down and focus your mind. So using the entire 10 minutes is highly recommended. Now if you have trouble concentrating during the test, here's a neat trick. So close your eyes, think of something unrelated to what you're doing at the time. It should be positive in nature, so when did you last go on vacation? When did you last spend time with your pets or your kids or your parents or whatever you did that you enjoyed? Think about that for just a moment and then get back to your line of thinking. And many people find that that'll help them stay more focused for longer periods of time. There is the ability within the system to mark a question and come back to it later. So if you don't know the answer to something, you could either take 45 seconds or so to think it through. You don't want to spend too much time. You've got 120 minutes and 100 questions. So going much over 1 minute per question is already putting you at a time disadvantage for the others. So if you don't know the answer and you think you might need to give that some more thought, you mark that question and you can come back to it after you've completed the questions that you can readily answer. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, you're not spending too much time on one question. That part's pretty straightforward. But also, because these questions all deal with similar subject matter. For example, you may see two questions that both have to do with open space on a project. You can use information from one question to maybe help you get a better answer on the one that you actually didn't know. So that's an interesting strategy here. I know I tried to put that into practice the last time I took a LEED exam and did reasonably well. Now, there's no reason whatsoever you should leave an answer blank. Even if you've got 2 minutes left on your exam, 10 questions, you have it answered, just bang in some characters there. Hopefully you'll have at least a moment to read the question and give it a reasonably informed guess. But even if that's not possible, no answer is not any better in terms of your rating and score than an incorrect answer. So unless you are just flat out of time and couldn't get to all the questions, there should be no circumstances where you have no answer for any of these questions. Go at a steady pace, so don't try to just go from start to finish. It's quite likely there's going to be a few questions on your exam that are going to take more than that minute or minute and a half to think through. Flagging those and coming back to them later. That's a great strategy and one you should keep in mind going into your exam. And some broad retention strategies here. So reviewing the material at least 3 times using 3 different formats. So this class is a great first format. You can also take your resources and read them out loud to yourself. So if you hear it in your ear, it's retained differently in your brain. And we don't get into the science of it, not that I understand it completely anyway, but it absolutely has been proven to be true that if you're exposed to it in different settings and using different senses, then the information's much more likely to stick. Flashcards are another good way, and then highlighting and kind of rereading your own notes. Also, think about it in terms of your real life. So how does what you learn in this class impact your personal life? How about the work that you do? How does it relate to the entire global community? Thinking about it in the broader context helps cement that knowledge and hopefully you'll keep at least a fair portion of it even after you've successfully completed your exam. And then a great opportunity, if you have a study buddy, would be to form a study group so that you can continue to challenge each other. You've got somebody to ask your questions to directly. All of that's going to help retain that information. So now we're just going to redouble back on some of the really high points. So again, this is not the easiest slide to read. There's kind of a lot of language on here. But this gives you an at-a-glance look at the reference guides and the rating systems, which also happen to correspond with the credentials themselves. So USGBC has created resource books for these rating systems, and those resource books are called reference guides. So each of the rating systems correlate to their own individual reference guide. The most widely used reference guide is the reference guide for building design and construction, and that's on the left-hand side in green. And that one book contains 8 rating system adaptations that collectively represent the building design and construction rating system. That includes LEED for new construction, LEED for core and shell, LEED for schools, retail, data centers, and on down the line here. So we also have interior design and construction, operations and maintenance. And then the last 2 here really in many ways work together. So we have homes, which represent residential construction, as you might imagine. And then we have LEED for neighborhood development, which addresses the neighborhood in its entirety and will typically have maybe LEED homes located within that neighborhood. So thinking about different levels of scale and how all of that fits together. So within the individual LEED rating system adaptations or categories. So the categories each contain sometimes prerequisites. In fact, not every category has a prerequisite. The location transportation category, for example, has no prerequisites. But all categories have credits. Now, credits award points to a project, whereas prerequisites, they're always required, but they do not award points to a project. So for prerequisites and credits, there's an intent and there's a requirements. In addition to those requirements, some credits have what's considered exemplary performance, which sets an even higher bar of achievement, and if the project team can attain that higher bar, they'll qualify for the bonus point in the innovation category. Now, also in review, let's revisit those categories that are addressed by LEED. So here we're looking just at those 6 core categories, starting with location and transportation, sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, and finally, indoor environmental quality. And with that, thank you for attending our course.